Precision machining is core to what we do. We've recently invested heavily in large-scale machining and capability in short supply across North America. We've also expanded our world-leading additive manufacturing operations alongside a focus on growing our fabrication capabilities. We're putting all of this to work in Canada's nuclear sector because we believe that with the right skill, the right technology, and real determination, there's nothing this country can't build. We're glad to host you today. There's important work happening in Canadian energy and industry, and EXCO is proud to play a part. I want to thank the Government of Canada and Minister Hodgson in particular for their leadership in choosing EXCO to mark this moment. To the provincial ministers joining us today and our colleagues across the nuclear sector, including my EXCO teammates, thank you as well. This is a true Team Canada effort, and it's a privilege for us to be part of it. Now, I have the easy job this morning. I get to welcome you, but let's move on to the substance. It's my pleasure to turn things over to our MC, Seema Akan. Seema, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Darren. It's a pleasure to be at EXCO Energy for this significant announcement. My name is Seema Akan, and I'm the Member of Parliament for Oakville West, and I'll be your MC for today's event. I would like to begin by recognizing that we are gathered on the traditional territories of the Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples, and the treaty land of the Williams Treaties, First Nations, and other Indigenous peoples whose presence here continues to this day. We honor and respect these Indigenous peoples as the traditional stewards of this land. Canadians understand that our strength lies in working together. Across the country, governments, industry, and communities are coming together with a shared vision for our energy future. Today's announcement reflects how we are positioning our country to lead on the global stage, and it is thanks in no small part to the expertise and the leadership of the people in this room. So before I start, I would like to introduce Minister Stephen Lecce, Ontario Minister of Energy and Mines, to say a few words for us.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you, Minister Hodgson, for your flexibility. I'm off to the Cambridge Nuclear Summit, so we're keeping it thematic today. But I want to tell you about a vision for nuclear in Ontario. You know, 94% of all nuclear reactors in the last decade were built by the Chinese or the Russians. The fact that you have all levels of government standing together today affirms our commitment as Canadians to build at scale, build with speed, build with ambition using the best of made-in-Canada technology. Ontario is a leader. Quite obviously, 97% of electricity from nuclear is generated from Ontario's fleet. You know, roughly 16 of 17 reactors are in our province. 25% of global uranium is refined in our province. And we are proud to be doing this with Bruce Power and OPG leading the way, building on time, building on budget, supported by the most talented, skilled workers on earth. We have something special in this province and country. We are one of 6 nations with our own civilian nuclear technology. In order to sustain that into the future for another century of nuclear leadership, clean energy leadership, we of course need to have a cogent long-term plan. And in the federal strategy, which they will reveal in moments, the inspiration in part was Ontario's integrated energy plan, this long-term 25-year plan for energy security. And part of it is it codifies our commitment to go from 50% baseload power to 75%, akin to what the French do. And so we're doing this with an incredible pedigree of discipline. We're doing this recognizing that we can do big things with ambition in this country again. We can build the largest nuclear generating facility in Bruce Power, eclipsing the South Koreans. We can do that here at home. We can build the largest nuclear generator on Earth in Wesleyville with OPG. We can do that here at home. We can build the Western world's first small modular reactor because we believe, all governments we can do it here at home. This is a moment for Canada to double down, and we're grateful to have collaboration of all levels. Part of that commitment, part of that vision, is the realization that having the feds at the table to invest in the next generation of Canadian technology is sacrosanct, is paramount to the viability of us maintaining our position in the world. And so I want to thank you all, our First Nation leaders who have stepped up, our supply chain that is so mature, the envy of the world. 90% of every dollar we invest in this province stays in Ontario. And I challenge those out there, name me a resource, a competitive resource that invests more in this country, in our sovereignty, in our supply chain, in our workforce, in First Nation opportunities, if not for nuclear power. So thank you, every one of you, for being part of the amazing ecosystem that is Canada's nuclear success. We truly are building something special. And to our hosts here today, what a beautiful story. In addition to investing in new AV equipment, we commit to invest in large-scale nuclear in this country, folks. We're going to do it. But our hosts, great story. We're challenged and imperiled by President Trump's tariffs. This company building a lot of the components and materials for auto, they pivoted to the energy sector. That's the hope and opportunity we in energy and nuclear are providing the supply chain of Canada and the workers. So thank you for what you do. Thank you, Minister Hodgson, for your partnership. Thank you to the ministers from Saskatchewan and New Brunswick who are either nuclear powers or soon to be nuclear powers. Together, we're building our country strong. So thank you all for this opportunity. We do appreciate it.
Thank you, Minister Lecce. So, without further ado, let's get to the matter at hand. Please join me in welcoming the Honourable Tim Hodgson, Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Thank you so much, Seema. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. It's a pleasure to be here in Newmarket today, and I want to begin, as Minister Lecce did, by thanking EXCO Energy for hosting us, and good luck on your journey as you transition to a bigger part of your business, being in the energy sector. I also want to recognize my colleagues from across Canada, including provincial, territorial, and municipal officials, Indigenous leaders, utility leaders, labor leaders, industry, academia, and many, many other people in this room who've helped build Canada's nuclear sector into what it is today. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are launching Canada's first national nuclear energy strategy. Canada is a Tier 1 nuclear nation, but we've not had a national nuclear energy strategy in the past. That means in many ways this represents a new beginning. Our government is introducing a coordinated, targeted plan for the nuclear sector at home and abroad. A plan that will mean new tools, new partnerships, new builds, and most importantly, a new civilian nuclear renaissance for Canada. It's a renaissance because this is not the start of something completely new. We are writing the next chapter in one of Canada's greatest industrial success stories. Il y a plus de siècles, Ernest Rutherford est arrivé à la Université McGill. At the time, Canada was not known as a center for global scientific research. But Rutherford found in Montreal one of the best equipped physics laboratories in the world. And within a few years, he and his team had transformed the world's understanding of radioactivity. That work helped earn the first Canadian Nobel Prize for research done, and it laid the foundation for the nuclear energy industry we know today. Then, in 1942, C.D. Howe, my predecessor in this job, authorized Canada's entry into the commercial nuclear age with 3 simple words. Okay, let's go. These words launched one of the most consequential scientific and industrial initiatives in our nation's history. Over the course of the 20th century, the Canadian nuclear industry did some very big things. Most importantly, we developed the CANDU reactor, a uniquely Canadian technology, built through federal leadership, provincial partnership, and the ingenuity of engineers, researchers, skilled tradespeople, operators, and suppliers that make up the nuclear supply chain across this country. In 1945, at the Chalk River Laboratory, the ZEEP reactor became the first nuclear reactor outside the United States to achieve criticality. In 1962, Canada's first nuclear power demonstration plant came online. And in the decades that followed, Canada built a nuclear energy ecosystem that remains the envy of the world. We built uranium mines in Saskatchewan that responsibly extract the world's highest grade uranium. We built an entirely new domestic supply chain that means we don't have to rely on other countries to power our homes and industries. We built a world-class operating culture that has set the record for the highest uptime operating reactors in the world. And we created a regulatory system trusted for its enforcement of the highest safety standards in the world. We have a workforce and unions that know how to deliver new builds and refurbishments on time and under budget. And we have a customer base for our technology around the world that few countries can match, which has generated billions of dollars in exports and thousands of jobs right here at home. Ladies and gentlemen, built over 70 years, Canada's nuclear energy advantage is one of our greatest achievements and one of our greatest cards to play in the volatile world in which Canada finds itself. Because today, as we have all come to understand, for Canada and for our allies, energy security is national security. And that advantage matters more than ever. It's no secret that Canada is facing a changing and volatile world where reliable energy feels scarce. Global trade is being reordered. Wars in Europe and the Middle East have reshaped energy security. Artificial intelligence and data infrastructure are driving unprecedented demand for power. Climate change is intensifying, and countries around the world are asking the same question. Where will the reliable, affordable energy we need to power our economy come from? For Canada, led by your new federal government, the answer begins with what we can control. Supplying and controlling our own energy, building a stronger, more sovereign economy, creating high-paying Canadian careers, and ensuring that the power that underpins our industries, our homes, our communities, and our future technologies are clean, reliable, affordable, and Canadian. That was the challenge your government set for Canada in May when we announced our forthcoming national electricity strategy. We know Canada's electricity demand is expected to double by 2050. So we will double the capacity of our grid. We will build new major electricity projects. We will connect fragmented grids through new transmission infrastructure. And we will train young Canadians for great, well-paying careers in the electricity sector. We will do this together in partnership with provinces and territories that have jurisdiction over their respective grids. We will do it in partnership with Indigenous peoples who are leading transition to more sustainable electricity development. And we will do it with industry and utilities who are on the front lines of building and delivering electricity to Canadian homes, businesses, schools, factories, and hospitals. Today's nuclear energy strategy is a direct complement to our upcoming national electricity strategy, which will build Canada strong for all. To put it simply, if our goal is to double our grid and reach net zero by 2050, there is no credible plan for Canada to do that without nuclear energy and the clean, reliable baseload power it provides. Moreover, there is no credible plan for Canada to move to become an energy superpower if we choose not to build upon one of the strongest energy advantages we have. Today, Canada's nuclear sector represents more than 90,000 direct and indirect jobs. In the industry itself, 90% of those jobs are high-skilled, providing high-paying career opportunities for Canadians not only in Ontario, but across this country. Nuclear energy provides approximately 13% of Canada's baseload electricity. It adds billions of dollars to our economy every year. It supports over 250 companies across the Canadian supply chain, many of whom are here today. And it is built on Canadian technology, Canadian uranium, Canadian expertise, and Canadian workers' ingenuity. A true sovereign effort to give ourselves more than anyone else can take away from us. Ladies and gentlemen, we are one of the few countries on Earth with the strengths across the full nuclear supply chain. We mine, we mill, we refine, and we convert uranium. We fabricate the fuel. We design and service the reactors. We operate one of the safest nuclear fleets in the world, both in Ontario and New Brunswick. We produce life-saving medical isotopes. We manage used fuel responsibly. And we regulate our nuclear energy industry with integrity, rigor, and independence. A less ambitious country would look at those advantages and rest on them. Under your federal government, Canada will not rest. We will build. Our new nuclear energy strategy will transform existing advantages into future economic growth, current capability into leadership for decades to come, and this hinge moment into prosperity and security that will stand the test of time. To do that, our nuclear energy strategy is organized around 4 pillars. First, enabling new nuclear builds across Canada. Our government has said clearly that Canada must build at scale and speed. That guiding principle applies to major projects, it applies to the electricity sector, and it applies in particular to nuclear. With respect to growing our nuclear capabilities, the build is already starting to happen before our eyes. As you heard from Minister Lecce, Ontario is advancing the Darlington New Nuclear Project, which will make Canada the first country in the G7 to deploy a small modular reactor. This nation-building project will power 300,000 homes while sustaining 3,700 jobs annually, including 18,000 jobs during construction. This project is so significant that we referred the Darlington New Nuclear Project to the Federal Major Projects Office in September of 2025. And our Canada Growth Fund made its largest ever by dollars investment in the project, alongside the Building Ontario Fund last fall. But Ontario is not alone. Saskatchewan is exploring both large reactors and small modular reactors. New Brunswick is looking at the future of Point Lepreau and its potential expansion. Alberta is developing a nuclear roadmap by January 1st, 2027. under the Canada-Alberta Memorandum of Understanding. And through our defense industrial strategy, your federal government has now taken the first big step towards exploring the use of nuclear energy in the North. The federal government's role is not to replace provincial or territorial jurisdictions over electricity generation. Our role is to enable, to coordinate, to de-risk, and to assure affordability for ratepayers and help build the conditions for success at the provincial and territorial level. That means helping jurisdictions with modern financing tools. It means creating smarter and more efficient regulatory systems that maintain the highest standard for safety, for security, for environmental protection, and for Indigenous consultation. It means investing in R&D, including modernizing the CANDU reactor, so Canadian technology remains a competitive option at home and abroad. It means taking a fleets-based approach where it makes sense, so we can reduce construction risk, strengthen supply chains, and build the reference projects that support future exports. And it means increasing Indigenous peoples' partnership through jobs, ownership, and long-term benefit agreements. The second pillar is positioning Canada as a global supplier and exporter of choice. Because it's not just Canada, the world is entering a nuclear renaissance. At COP 2 years ago, dozens of countries endorsed the goal of tripling nuclear energy capacity by 2050. And more than 30 countries are now pursuing nuclear power for the first time. All of these countries are looking for trusted partners who can help them reduce dependence on geopolitically exposed supply chains. Fortunately, once again, Canada has what the world wants. We have the best global deposits of natural uranium, including the world's largest high-grade uranium deposits at McArthur River. Last year, approximately 24% of global uranium production came from Saskatchewan. Not bad for a province that represents 0.015% of the world's population. Well done. Our uranium production is also set to go up. Just this winter, the federal government approved the first new uranium mines in Saskatchewan in over a decade. One of these mines, the Rook I mine, could supply 20% of global uranium demand, and it's set to break ground this summer. Canada also has CANDU technology, which does not depend on foreign uranium enrichment supply chains. We have an experienced regulator that the world looks to for best practices. We have export financing tools that are second to none. And through the building of a deep geological repository, we have a plan to store used nuclear fuel with the best regarded, safest solution in the world. But to position Canada to thrive in this increasingly volatile, energy insecure world, we need to act as Team Canada. That means the Government of Canada, provinces, territories, utilities, Indigenous peoples, other partners, labor, industry, researchers, and exporters, we all need to move in the same direction. It means presenting international partners with a complete Canadian offering: fuel, technology, financing, regulatory training, supply chains, operations and refurbishment, isotopes, and waste management expertise. It means supporting our existing partners while pursuing new markets like Poland, where I was on behalf of Team Canada in February. Ladies and gentlemen, we must remember that unlike many of our other exports, reactor exports are not one-off transactions. They create customers that will buy Canadian for decades to come, building our strategic and economic autonomy with a network of trading partners that allows us to rely less on any one other trading partner. Our nuclear exports change the equation for a country looking for energy security and significantly reduce the emissions produced by energy around the world. And these exports create high-value jobs here at home that allow Canadians to support their families and contribute to a quintessentially Canadian industry. The third pillar is expanding uranium production and nuclear fuel opportunities while supporting world-class long-term waste management. Canada is the world's second largest producer of uranium. We hold, as I said, the highest grade uranium deposits on the planet, concentrated in Saskatchewan's Athabasca Basin. It cannot be understated or overstated how strategic this is. In a world where energy security is national security, Canadian uranium is a source of stability for our own reactors and for our allies. Because our current CANDU fleet is fueled by natural uranium, Canada is the only country in the world that is fully self-sufficient in our own fuel supply, something other countries can only dream about. In fact, operating at full capacity, Saskatchewan's uranium producers could mine and mill enough uranium every year to meet 170% of Canada's total annual electricity demand with carbon-free nuclear energy. And as new technologies come online, including small modular reactors that require enriched fuel, Canada's global relationships have allowed us to already begin to secure a fuel supply from partners we can count on. Furthermore, in a world where Canada is looking to build the strongest economy in the G7 and double jobs in the Canadian nuclear industry from 90,000 today to 180,000 jobs in the coming decades, Canadian uranium can play a significant role. Today, over 2,500 people in Saskatchewan work in the uranium sector, and 42% of them are in the province's north. They are not just jobs, they are good-paying jobs. The average annual salary in Saskatchewan's mining industry is 2.3 times higher than the average salary in Saskatchewan. These are good jobs. As I'm sure Minister Harrison will speak about, the role uranium plays in both his province and our global export strategy is massive. At home in the uranium sector last year, we saw nearly $400 million in capital investment. We saw $1.2 billion in value procured from suppliers across Canada, with 30% of those supplies being Indigenous-owned businesses. And it generated nearly $500 million in tax revenue paid to federal, provincial, and municipal governments, revenue that is used to pay for the social services and public infrastructure Canadians care about. At the same time, we continue to lead responsibly on used nuclear fuel management. Public confidence matters, and that comes from comprehensive, long-term stewardship of used nuclear fuel. Through the Nuclear Waste Management Organization, Canada's system is grounded in science, transparency, independent regulation, and the principle that the waste generators are responsible for managing and funding their liabilities. The progress made with the Township of Ignace and the Wabigon Lake Ojibwe Nation on the Deep Geological Repository is an example of long-term, serious community-based engagement on one of the most important responsibilities in the nuclear sector. Thank you. The fourth and final pillar is developing new Canadian nuclear innovation. Canada's nuclear leadership has always been built on innovation, from uranium mining to CANDU technology to isotopes to new SMRs. Our new strategy requires the same ambition once again. Our government is prepared to do our part by supporting research and development, advanced construction, SMRs, microreactors, fusion, tritium expertise, isotope production, and the future of our national research infrastructure. The federal government has committed $2.2 billion over the next 10 years to renew the Chalk River Laboratories, Canada's national nuclear lab. This investment makes sure Canada leads the 21st century in CANDU technology, in nuclear safety, in security, in small modular reactors, in reactor fuel development, and supporting utilities with reactor life extension and reliability capabilities. We are also investing in the development of microreactors that could one day provide clean, dependable heat and power for remote northern defense and industrial applications. And we are advancing Canada's role in fusion, building on decades of Canadian expertise in tritium handling and the fuel cycle. That is how our strategy ensures that the next generation of nuclear jobs, companies, and innovative breakthroughs happen here in Canada. Because if we don't, they're going to happen somewhere else. Our nuclear energy strategy is ambitious. It has to be. Because the scale of the opportunity, I hope you understand at this point, is immense. But it's not an opportunity that should intimidate us. It's an opportunity that should remind us who we are as Canadians. Canadians built one of the strongest, cleanest, and most affordable electricity systems in the world. Canadians built CANDU and a complementary nuclear supply chain that support these and other reactors and hundreds of companies across this country. Canadians built a workforce 90,000 strong to deliver some of the most complex energy projects on Earth, on time and on budget. And Canadians will now build the next generation of nuclear energy to power our homes, to power our industries, to provide data centers and our economy through to 2050 and far beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, our strategy is ambitious because our government knows we must keep bills affordable while reducing emissions. We must create high-skilled, well-paying careers. We must advance reconciliation through economic partnership. We must support our allies when they need us most. And most of all, we must strengthen Canadian sovereignty in a more dangerous world. When we master energy, we master our destiny. Today, Canada is taking another step towards mastering that destiny. Through the National Electricity Strategy, we will double the grid. Through the Nuclear Energy Strategy, we will ensure the grid is reliable, it is clean, and it is sovereign. And we will bolster supply chains, access new markets, and diversify our trade. This will be a Team Canada initiative. Provinces and territories, Indigenous peoples, utilities, regulators, unions, and skilled trades, engineers, researchers, entrepreneurs, manufacturers, investors, exporters, and communities from coast to coast to coast will all play their part. But that is exactly how Canada has always succeeded in the nuclear world. Not through one company, not through one level of government, not through one project. Rather, we succeed if we master two clear objectives: being an energy superpower and building Canada strong for all. There is no time to waste. So as C.D. Howe said more than 80 years ago, okay, let's go. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Minister Hodgson. Now, let me invite the Honourable René Legacy, the New Brunswick Minister of Energy, to say a few words.
Thank you, and good afternoon. Minister Hodgson, thank you very much for the invite for this great announcement. So pleased to be here to hear all the great plans that we have for this country. To my colleagues, Mr. Harrison, I got to say, every time I hear about Saskatchewan's industrial revolution, I am impressed. It is impressive, and I say that with full jealousy. You would have no idea. To Minister Lecce, always nice to see Minister Lecce, and I wouldn't want to let the opportunity pass by to mention again his leadership on signing a pan-Canadian intertie MOU with all the provinces. As we say back home, that kid hustled for a few months to get that done, and it's to his full credit. He did an awesome job to get us all on the same page. No, it's not nuclear, but it does have impact on it. So quite impressive, and always a pleasure to be back in Ontario to see him and to continue to share a great relationship and exchange. I would also like to mention that Lori Clark, our CEO from NB Power, is in the room. So nice to see her, fellow New Brunswicker. We need something done. All right, thanks. I won't go back and repeat like the great information that the minister brought up about Canada's place in the world in nuclear, but I do want to talk about New Brunswick a bit, because nuclear has been part of our past. It's definitely part of our present, and it most assuredly will be part of our future. We brought a first CANDU into the mix in the early 80s, so we've been a nuclear jurisdiction in Canada for almost 50 years now, built the supply chain around it, built an infrastructure network that supports it, and we feel that there's still more to do. I'll get back to that in a second. We were the first to refurbish, and I know Stephen Lecce talks a lot about how their refurbishments in Ontario were done on budget and on time. Brings it up to me quite often, and I keep reminding him, and that's being done on hard lessons learned at LaPro. And that's what Team Canada is about, where we take that information, those lessons, and we push it forward to the next projects. It is now time to get to those next projects. So we were part of that first initiative. Back when SMR started in 2015, 2016, we were part of that discussion early on. The first SMR strategy had New Brunswick stamped all over it. Continues to be an active discussion for us, where we've built knowledge, we've built connections, we continue to look at that technology moving forward. I see representatives from nuclear back there that just took on Moltex, which is going to potentially bring on a great nuclear fuel solution with our nuclear waste, which has a lot of potential. So these discussions continue to happen. That was part of our past. Right now, we are still looking at, I'm going to push that a little bit back. We are still pushing to get our LaPro site ready for new nuclear. This summer, we are looking at adding isotopes, medical isotopes, to our mix, and hopefully being able to collect some of those within 2027, if possible. So still very active in our territory, getting new things done. With our current shutdown, we're looking at all kinds of innovations. As far as our future goes, and in all the discussions that we're having with the provinces, and I look at the first pillar that the minister mentioned, point 2, which is new nuclear in Canada outside of Ontario before 2035. And I've repeated it a couple of times, and I'll say it here again today. The easiest path to get new nuclear in Canada outside of Ontario by 2035 is going through Point LaPro. We're ready, we're advanced, we're already doing our EIAs at this point. We've already started engaging in the first steps with our First Nations, getting that relationship ready for those next steps. We know that we have a potential to put an extra 1,500 megawatt on that site. It is the only site in Canada ready to move ahead, so we're ready. We're building a coalition of the willing out east with our sister provinces, Nova Scotia, PEI. I'm not gonna lie, the New England states are pushing hard for us to do this because they are voracious for energy. And we have good friends there too, so we're willing to listen and talk. We're having conversations with Quebec also. So this is truly a Canadian solution on the East Coast that we feel is doable. We know we can't do it alone. We're a small jurisdiction, but we don't feel like we're doing it alone. I see lots of familiar faces in this room that I get to meet quite often now, and it does feel like there is a Team Canada building, and I can assure you absolutely that New Brunswick is part of that formula, and you will see that new nuclear very soon. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Minister Legacy. Now, let me invite the Honorable Jeremy Harrison, Saskatchewan Minister responsible for Sask Energy Incorporated and Minister responsible for Saskatchewan Power Corporation.
Well, thanks very much. Really do appreciate it. Want to start by making some acknowledgements. There's a lot of friends here in the room. Minister Legacy, thanks so much. Probably not well known, but ministers actually get to spend quite a lot of time together in the same files, whether it be through FPTs or international engagement. And Minister Legacy and I have had that opportunity, and I think that his constituents are very well served by his leadership. I can tell you that. Want to thank Minister Lecce as well, a longtime friend of mine, who really does hustle and is a wonderful minister and MPP here in Ontario. Want to thank Minister Hodgson. Really appreciated the comments, and I'll talk a bit about that a little more, but Minister Hodgson has really been a great partner, I would say, for our province of Saskatchewan. And, whether it be on issues that relate to the forestry sector, for example, Minister Hodgson and I were working directly on a couple of issues. Minister Hodgson knows Saskatchewan very well, having worked on projects in the province in his previous life. So I want to acknowledge that. Really approaching things in a how do we get this fixed, how do we get this done fashion. You're seeing that reflected here in the nuclear strategy today. We saw it in the electricity strategy as well. And I really want to acknowledge our appreciation for having a partner in Canada's new government, which has really been a very, very welcome development, and we appreciate it in Saskatchewan. So with regard to the strategy, this is really is a very positive day. And having the commitment from the Government of Canada to play a full partnership role with provinces and territories in advancing deployment of nuclear power is a very, very significant development. And I think in the details, really a very ambitious strategy, a thoughtful strategy, and I would say really a very nuanced strategy as well. Having read through it a number of times, picking out even further positive nuance in how the strategy was drafted, we are very encouraged. And I think we share the same goals in Saskatchewan as with the federal government. Getting to a net zero grid by 2050, working across the country to build a pan-Canadian energy grid, including between provinces, prioritizing energy security, prioritizing reliability and affordability as the North Stars of our power generation strategy. And all of that has gone into our approach, which really is, we have made the binary decision that we are going to be deploying nuclear power in Saskatchewan. We're going through the process right now of site selection for SMRs. Parallel process we're working through on large-scale nuclear as well, and that process continues to go forward. Appreciate as well the focus and commitment on Indigenous participation, and I'll recognize my very good friend here, Sheldon Watney, representing 70+ First Nations from Saskatchewan. And Sheldon has been involved from the very ground floor in Saskatchewan, representing those 70+ First Nations as full partners. And that is the approach that we have taken and are going to continue to take in Saskatchewan, and having that commitment from the federal government as well is really very significant. It really is, and I want to thank Sheldon for his leadership, because we really do play a pivotal role in Saskatchewan in that global nuclear supply chain. Minister Hodgson rightfully referenced the importance in the uranium space. 25% of global uranium supply set to grow significantly with 2 new uranium mine projects that are ready to move forward, break ground. Been an enormous amount of work that has gone into getting to where we are on that, and I want to acknowledge the positive role played by the federal government there as well. So that pivotal and central role in the global nuclear supply chain, which we see set to grow, really being an important part of this strategy. And one observation I would make, being from Western Canada, there are a lot of forces in this country that push us apart, and it takes a lot of work to bring us together. And I say as a very proud Canadian that nuclear is a space that plays a role that is deeply unifying across the country. Whether, as was well spoken to by Minister Legacy on in the Atlantic provinces, whether it be the centrality that Ontario plays globally in the nuclear space to Saskatchewan uranium. This is an area that can really bring this country together through that One Canada approach and that team approach. And I think that's been really a theme that you've heard here today, developed by ministers speaking from the podium. This is an area that brings the country together. And I just want to leave with our appreciation for my colleagues in provinces and territories, for our appreciation at the national government, and I would say from a lot of you who have worked in the industry through some difficult times. Hasn't always been this bright looking, who have persevered, stayed with it, who have continued to build your companies and do the work necessary so that today we're in a position to capitalize on this unique moment that we have. So thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate the invitation and have a great day.
Thank you, Minister Harrison. Now I would like to invite George Christidis, President and the CEO of Canadian Nuclear Association, to give a few words.
Well, what an honor. And it's great to be here with a lot of colleagues and friends that we've made along the years. Bonjour tout le monde. Mon nom c'est George Christidis. Je suis le président de l'association nucléaire. Et ici à Toronto, nous parlons le français aussi. So just keep that in mind. But I want to thank you, Minister Hodgson. I want to thank the ministers for all the hard work of coming together. Because I do think we have to take a moment in time and think about where we started. And there was a moment that if you had told us that we'd be meeting here together to discuss a nuclear energy strategy over the years, it would have been almost a dream. And here we are, where we're seeing federal, provincial governments coming together. You're seeing labor, you're seeing the utilities, you're seeing the whole region come together, different regions come together. And that's a very unique moment in time. And really, it is to a lot what the ministers have spoken about. Minister Hodgson spoke about, what Minister Lecce, Minister Harrison, Minister Legacy have talked about. It's about the importance of our nuclear industry as a strategic asset to accomplish a number of key goals. Like we've seen at the G7, the world needs Canada. It needs nuclear from Canada. It needs other energy sources from Canada. And as we heard from Minister Harrison, my home province as well, there's a dynamic there that there's an opportunity to unite our country behind this technology, behind this industry, or with this industry. And when we look across the provinces and different regions, we identify that, quite frankly, the opportunity to work is to what end? It's about making Canada strong. It's about creating jobs, strengthening our communities, working with our First Nation partners, Sheldon from Saskatchewan, working with our municipalities, Mayor Foster's here, I'd seen. And it's about coming together to accomplish very significant goals that we see ourselves as a partner to. And the nuclear energy strategy, we feel, provides that foundation. The nuclear energy strategy, had the opportunity to look at it, is resoundingly a direction that we all collectively are behind, Minister. So we thank you very much for this opportunity. Yes, there are competitive pressures. Yes, there's different views sometimes that exist, but the direction of the nuclear energy strategy is exactly where we need to go, and we appreciate this effort, Minister, very much. Canada has what it takes. We have the technology, we have the workforce, we have the excellence, we have the culture of getting things done. And now we're looking eagerly to accomplish these goals. Now, before we move ahead, I have to acknowledge a few things. I'm president of the Canadian Nuclear Association, so it's an honor to speak on behalf of the industry. But the industry itself is based, I think, a lot of the successes that Minister Lecce had spoken about. The work, the refurbishment led by OPG and Bruce Power, particularly with labor in delivering these projects on time and on budget, were foundational for the reputation of this industry. The work, the leadership that New Brunswick Power is doing is foundational to the work that this is doing. Across this region, different parts of our industry are working hard. Cameco and the other uranium mining companies like Orano are working hard to accomplish great goals. We're doing amazing work in the small reactor space, but as you pointed out, Minister Hodgson, in the large reactor space. So as we come together and look at the next chapter, the nuclear energy strategy is foundational to the next set of conversations, whether it's regulatory, financial, workforce, supply chain, whatever it might be, but we're honored to be part of the solution, and we look forward to working with yourself, Minister Hodgson, and as well as the other ministers in accomplishing and getting things done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Christidis. It's now my honor to welcome our last speaker. Please welcome Sean Strickland, Executive Director of Canadian Building Trades Unions, to give a few words.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here today, and thank you, Minister Hodgson, for presenting this clear path forward for nuclear energy in Canada. Dignitaries, stakeholders, parliamentarians, elected officials, my name is Sean Strickland, Executive Director of Canada's Building Trades Unions, representing 14 different construction unions, some of whom are represented here today, 60 different trades, and over 500,000 workers coast to coast in Canada. Thank you. Every one of our unions and each of our 60 different construction trades participates in the construction and maintenance of traditional nuclear and SMRs. Just down the road at Darlington, there are over 1,000 workers on site building not only Canada's, but the G7's first small modular reactor. Northwest of here at Bruce Power, there are also over 1,000 workers working on major component repair replacement programs and life extension projects. Recent project milestones at Darlington and Bruce have indicated projects being delivered under budget and ahead of schedule. Traditional nuclear, SMRs, new builds, maintenance in Ontario and New Brunswick are constructed and maintained and operated using the highest skilled nuclear contractors and tradespeople in the world. Each and every one of them 100% union. Our contractor expertise and capacity, union training facilities, and apprenticeship programs are the best in the business. In partnership with governments across Canada, we welcome the challenge of training thousands of more workers to meet the promise of this new nuclear strategy. And we will train them the right way, the union way. No shortcuts, no compromises, dedicated to skill and to safety. Minister and ministers, you have a strong partner with Canada's building trades unions, our affiliates, our provincial councils, and our members. Let's do this together. Go, Canada, go.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Once again, thank you to everyone for being here today, and thank you to EXCO Energy for so graciously hosting us. In September last year, MP James Maloney and I established the Nuclear Caucus. Together, we connected policymakers to industry leaders as we look to advance Canada's world-leading nuclear sector under the leadership of Minister Hodgson. Since then, George and the Canadian Nuclear Association have worked closely with us, as have many experts from across the industry, including same familiar faces here today. Together, we are working to ensure continued progress for our nuclear sector through advocacy and policy development. I will now turn it over Carolyn Swankin, who will moderate the media availability. Thank you.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. I'm just going to take this mic. So as said, we will now move to the media availability portion of the announcement. We'll start with journalists in the room and then move to those who we have online. If you can just please state your name and the outlet that you're reporting for prior to asking your question. And if it is for any of our specific speakers, please indicate that as well so we can have them come up to the podium. And we will start with one question, one follow-up. So if there's anyone in the room who'd like to ask a question, please just indicate that now. All right, seeing none, Chris, I'll pass it over to you on the Zoom line.
Great, thank you, Carolyn. For those on the line, please feel free to raise your hand. When it's your turn, you'll be prompted to unmute your microphone. On va commencer avec Christian Noël avec Radio-Canada. S'il vous plaît, activez votre microphone.
Oui, voilà, mon micro est maintenant activé. Est-ce que vous m'entendez bien?
Oui.
Merci. Bon, ma question est pour le ministre Hodgson. My question is for Minister Hodgson. How many new jobs and how much economic impact do you plan to create with that new strategy?
So today there are about 90,000 direct and indirect jobs in the nuclear industry in Canada. We believe that as the provinces make their choices and roll out nuclear, that will lead to at least a doubling of that level of employment. So going from roughly 90,000 jobs today to 180,000 plus jobs in the coming decades.
Thank you. And how much of this is contingent on AECL to renew its deal with Atkins-Realis that is set to expire in October? And what's the status of the negotiation there? Are you negotiating? Are you talking to different companies? Are you going to let the deal expire? What's the status there? And how much of it is contingent? How much of your strategy is contingent on renewing that deal?
So to be clear, it is the responsibility and the choice of the different provinces and territories to make the technology choice for their next nuclear decisions. What we have heard from the provinces, and we believe, is it's important that Canada's Indigenous technology, the CANDU technology, be updated, as we talked about in our technical brief. The last CANDU reactor in Canada was built in the 1990s. There have been a number of updates to the technology that we need to put through in the new designs, and we will ensure CANDU is a viable technology for the different provinces to choose from going forward.
Minister, merci pour vos questions, Christian. Next, we'll move to Matt McLaren with Global Mill. Matt, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you for taking my question. This is for Minister Hodgson. So the strategy talks about CANDU many times, and in particular the government did say it's going to modernize, or it wants to ensure that the CANDU is going to be modernized and made cost competitive. What exactly is the government going to do to meet that objective? What assistance are you providing or committing to provide?
So we're in discussions, in particular because Ontario is the first jurisdiction that's going to make those choices. We're in discussions with the province of Ontario, as well as the two operators of nuclear in Ontario, that's Bruce and OPG, about what they need in the way of updates. The simplest thing to think about is since Fukushima happened, there have been updates in safety requirements that we need to build into the next generation of CANDU technology. There are other ways we can harden and strengthen nuclear reactors that have been built in to the refurbishments that have been done over the last several years that we want to put into new builds. And we're in the process with Ontario, with OPG and with Bruce and with Atkins-Realis to make sure the CANDU technology is updated to reflect all of those opportunities for improvement.
Okay, thank you. And I did have one follow-up question for you. The strategy talks about de-risking capital investment through federal fiscal and financing capacity, and many other comments along those regards. I'm wondering, though, I mean, the government has provided lots of support to nuclear projects in the past. We've seen equity and debt for the Darlington SMR, for example. So what's new about the federal financing that is the government's going to offer to nuclear projects going forward? What's new here?
So as the strategy says, over the next year, we will be working with the different jurisdictions to look at the technology choices they are making and to ensure we have the most complete set of tools so that those jurisdictions can make the choices they need. So you're absolutely right. As it relates to SMRs, we have investment tax credits that help make the choices more affordable. We have the Canada Infrastructure Bank, which can help provinces with different costs of capital access the cost of capital of the federal government and bring down the cost, keep things more affordable. We have the tool like the Canada Growth Fund, which takes first-of-a-kind risk that's hard for the private sector to take. I'll give you an example there at the SMR where the Canada Growth Fund came in and took a tranche of about $2 billion of the $20 billion capital stack. That enabled the other $18 billion of private sector money to come into the transaction because Canada was taking the first-of-the-kind risk there. But one of the things that we need to think particularly around new builds is a new build reactor with the refurbishments probably has a life of 80 to 90 years. There's a high upfront capital cost. We need to look at tools so that the current generation doesn't have to absorb the entire upfront cost of that large build reactor that is going to benefit multiple generations of Canadians going forward. So one of the things we're focusing on is working with the provinces and working with proponents to make sure we spread that cost effectively over the life of the project to keep things affordable for Canadians, because we know ultimately Canada, one of our big advantages is we have one of the very lowest costs of electricity, both from a residential and an industrial perspective in the world, and we need to keep it that way. So we will be using all the tools I talked about and some incremental financing techniques for new builds to make sure we keep our industry world-class and keep it affordable.
Thanks for your question, Matt. We're almost out of time. We do have time for one more question. Que nous sommes presque à court de temps, nous prendrons une dernière question. We'll go to Nick Murray, Canadian Press. Nick, we have time for just one question. No follow-up on this one, okay? Just one question.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for taking our questions. The questions are for Minister Hodgson. In the strategy, the government, it talks about the government's intention to renew or to review nuclear regulatory and legislative framework to identify opportunities for future improvement, and that's on top of the discussion paper, which is proposing to move the review process for nuclear projects over to the Safety Commission. So I'm wondering, that kind of second part, as far as the intent to review the regulatory and legislative framework, what else are you guys looking to change and looking to do?
So as part of the set of initiatives that Minister McKinnon and Mr. LeBlanc have started consultations on, one of the goals we're looking at is to bring all of the approval and assessment into one agency, the Canada Nuclear Safety Commission. We think by centralizing all of the responsibilities in one organization, we can both raise the standards and raise the competence of the government and deliver the certainty that all the stakeholders and proponents require in that 2-year time period. So we have a clear objective that when proponents bring a project that's ready to be evaluated, that we will deliver within 2 years a conditions document which says if you meet these conditions which are laid out, you will have the ability to operate. That gives the proponents the ability to commit capital start building and keep the cost of these mega projects affordable.
Great, thank you everyone. This concludes the event. Ceci conclut l'événement. Merci à tous.